At least I'm safe. There are a number of issues. I will only respond to some. I will leave others for my colleagues, including the CEO. The starting point is the issue of kicking out of PO, agents by POs. We had discussion with our staff yesterday. As you may be aware, we have all our national staff undergoing a planning meeting as we speak in Bomas, planning for the election. And one of the things, one of the discussions we had was about agents. It is not the intention of the policy to kick out any agent of any political party or candidate. And if the allegations of agents being kicked out, then the commission needs to be alerted, the presiding officer needs to be alerted, the county election manager needs to be alerted so that action is taken against those POs. The issue of agents signing results form, it is provided for in the regulations. Agents will sign the results form, but from experience, we know some agents of some candidates, when their candidates are not winning, they don't want to sign the form. And the law envisages that not signing by an agent of the result form does not nullify the result. I think we should be clear on that as well. Okay? The issue of agents taking pictures of the forms, I think we discourage pictures in the polling stations because we want to preserve the sanctity of and the privacy of the voter. And if this can be done in a manner that does not expose, then the commission can have deliberations with stakeholders and see how that can be provided in terms of just taking an image of the result. We can decide how we can do it. I don't know whether the legal team of IEBC will be in agreement, but I think we can discuss that. Okay? Result transmission simulation challenges. I don't know, somebody has a hand up and I'm still responding.
Thank you. Just one interjection. I think the issue of saying that we cannot have cameras in the polling station because you want to respect the sanctity of the secret vote. Nobody is taking pictures in the booth where the person is. That is where it's not allowed. But in terms of taking the result form or taking a video of the returning officer making the announcement, I think we are permitted to do that.
I thought I said we will sit with you guys and agree on a protocol. Is that a problem? Okay? I didn't say otherwise. Okay? In terms of results simulation, of course, it was a simulation, and a simulation is to test. And when you test, it can either pass or not pass. We did a simulation. There were a few challenges. One of the main challenges was that all our MNOs, mobile network operators, were not on board. They had some logistics in terms of moving some of the kits to the far distant counties where the testing was to, result transmission was to happen. So we had a few challenges, and we had internally said we will redo it again. And so when we are having learned lessons from that, the challenges that we had. So we will advise you accordingly. Now, yes, the GPS coordinates of all polling stations will be shared with political parties. We actually gave GPS coordinates to the communication authority, and that is how they mapped out polling stations or polling centers that are outside 3G coverage areas. So this can be shared with political parties. Public portal accessibility, I will leave to Marjan to address that. In terms of agents, one agent per party not being enough. We have classrooms as our polling stations. And you know our primary schools, how small the classrooms are. We have elective positions where, for example, in MCA, in the last election, in the range of 40 candidates. Just one elective position. And we have a huge number of independent candidates. So if each candidate is to have an agent, that classroom will be congested. Again, we need to have a discussion on how to better manage the agenting process so that the poll officials and the agents can be accommodated in the classrooms that we have. It is not our intention to shut out anybody's agent, but we need to operate within the spaces that we use as polling stations. Now, the question was asked, how do we ensure the 6 ballot papers that you give to a voter is accounted for? It is the Commission's desire that ballot papers issued to a voter are all placed in respective, the color of the ballot paper with the lid of the ballot box. And this is for purposes of ensuring that the voters are guided. And part of our trainings is to ask our presiding officers to ensure that ballot papers issued are put in respective boxes. If you don't want any candidate, leave it blank, but put in the respective ballot box. But sometimes the reason earlier on when we were discussing the issue of the register, the reason why we are saying putting more emphasis on the digital register is because when there is this manual register, if in that particular locality is a stronghold of a particular, for example, presidential candidate, and if they cannot agree on the other seats, at least they agree on a presidential candidate. So in that respect, they may issue ballot papers of a presidential candidate and put in the presidential ballot box, and they may not bother with the others. So this sometimes makes a disparity between the figures of voters for presidential and the other candidates. And hence, it's part of the reasons why we are saying, let's have more on the digital. Our focus should be more on the digital register than the ballot, the physical ballot paper, register of voters. So we will train, it's a matter for training, we will train our presiding officers to ensure that the 6 ballot papers issued to a voter are all accounted for in the different ballot boxes. There were issues about somebody asking people in hospitals their right to vote. I think there's so much the Commission can do. We have designated, gazetted polling stations. We cannot convert every hospital bed to be a polling station. And we have no capacity to bring every 6 patient in a hospital to come to a ballot, to come and vote in a polling station. It is a shared responsibility. As Kenyans, if you have relatives, friends that are able, that can be taken to vote, we will be more than happy to welcome them to the polling station and to facilitate their voting. Reference was made to the 1,111 polling centers with no 3G and perhaps what arrangements we are doing. We've had similar incidents in 2017, and as I've always responded to on this matter, funds allowing, we will deploy satellite modems to ensure that we have coverage in terms of network connectivity in those areas to facilitate transmission of the image of the result forms. In terms of API access, I'll leave it to Marjan. You can deal with that. And also handle that together with the stress test for simulation in terms of the digital images that comes to our servers. On the cloud storage, is it locally? We are not using any cloud storage this time. We are using our resources within the territory of Kenya. We are not outside the country. And so, in the event that there will be a cloud, it will be a cloud within the Kenyan space. But for us, is on the infrastructure that we have deployed to be used within the country in terms of the primary and secondary data centers that we have in the country. The issue of all data in MOFO and the transmission of data from one service provider to the other, you can, Marjan, address that. As well as the geofencing of kits. Of course, geofencing, as you rightly put it, can only happen once they are online. But the beauty with the kit is that once it gets locked to that particular station, it can because there is also a SIM, and if this SIM is active, we also need the kit to transmit voter turnout data at intervals of 2-3 hours. So ideally, the kit should be connected to enable that transmission of that data. But for purposes of the register, we already preload it, and we do not need connectivity to access details of voters in terms of identification. So I think I'll invite Marjan to finish off the remaining questions. Thank you very much.
The question of presidential ballot. Regulation 83 requires that, the Regulation 83 requires that the presidential term be announced first, and that's the rule. But then there is the issue of what if the presidential ballot was mistakenly placed at the moment, and yet you are starting the presidential ballot. In some cases, there have been a problem and discrepancies as a result. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the issue of the counting of the votes, I think the regulations are very clear. It starts with the presidential ballot box first.
Okay.
And so that is not in dispute. It's already part of our training program.
For joining us.
Now, for purposes of
this session on youth as partners in Black Service. My name is Rebecca Nyankia. I work with the National AIDS Control Council. I am the program officer for adolescents and young people. So really, young people are very close.
What is happening?
This session is on youth, as I said, youth as partners in blood services. And I don't know about you, but as myself, when I was 18 or 15 or in campus, I was obviously not.
We have been overrun. Is it a technology failure?
I understand why it's an important conversation for us to have.
Complementary.
So I think it's important for us to figure out how to engage young people more and how to make this an important cause for them, given that they're the largest number.
But anyway, if a ballot paper,
for that reason,
if a ballot is cast in the wrong ballot box,
we also have some people joining us.
We will not transfer it to the right ballot box. And I think, Owie, you can correct me. It is a spoiled.
So when we get into the
strange, stray ballot paper. If it is a stray ballot paper, it's not counted as a valid vote.
The purpose of this session
and that is the procedures that we have. Okay? It's already taken care of in terms of our training. In fact, we have a spoiled,
so the purpose of this session is that
rejected,
young people, what are some of the challenges that they face in terms of that.
You may want to come and elaborate on that, Owie.
And how this can be a relevant conversation for them as
I'll give you a chance to elaborate on that. But if a ballot paper is not in its rightful box, then it's not counted as a validly cast ballot paper. Okay? I don't know if Ben, Prof, if it answers. Okay. Marjan?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something before Marjan answers. Mr. Chairman, we appreciate the session, and I just want to note that obviously this is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the process is credible and believable. And I just wanted to raise an issue about procurement, and that concerns the procurement for the printing of the ballot papers. And we want some more information about where the printing is being done, who is doing it, what company is responsible, and perhaps the ownership of that company. And secondly, the question of the procurement of technology. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, you can hear me now. No, I'll stand up. I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, that we appreciate the process of this conversation. Obviously, we appreciate that the election is a process. We want to make sure that every phase of the electoral process is credible and believable to the public. One area that concerns us is the question of the printing of the ballot papers. We want to know who is printing the ballot papers, where they are being printed, and we want to make sure that their custody is secure, and we want to make sure that you can assure us how that security will be given for the ballot papers. It will be important for us also to know who owns the company that is printing the ballot papers. Secondly, there's a question of technology. We understand that Smartmatic is a company that is registered somewhere in Panama, is providing the technology. We'd like to know, again, the ownership of the company, the connections with the company that people in this country may or may not have, so that we can be sure that the procurement process is transparent. I think you'll appreciate our concern on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What
It was not user-friendly. Have we addressed? The answer is yes. We've been working with the vendor since 9th to improve on some of the features. For example, it was not clear in each county, in each constituency, how many results had been received so far. That will become more clear in the new version we are working on. Number 2, assurance that the public portal will be accessible. I wish to confirm again, it will be on the public internet, accessible to the media, observers, and the general public. In addition, we are working on the API. Someone asked when you'll have access. We understand you need time for integration of the API. We are working on this, and from next week, we're going to start engaging with the technical representative of all the major political parties, the presidential candidates, so that they understand the technology we are using. We work together on technical issues like API, so that they are ready as well to prepare themselves. As the chairman said, if they want to do their own parallel tallying. I've answered on API. Data migration. There was a question on what assurance that we've migrated and deleted data from the previous vendor after migration to the new vendor. The fact is, we have not deleted data from the previous vendor because that data remains reference. We do not want to delete its reference and will be retained until we maybe at least 3 years, because it is a reference data that we paid for. So there's no need to give you evidence of deletion. We have not deleted it. We still keep it as reference. But the entire register, as at that time of 19.8, has been migrated to the new vendor. In addition, we added about 2.5 or so million voters registered through ECVR 1 and 2 and deleted dead voters and people who had registered with fake documents. And as the chairman announced, the register now stands at 22.1 million voters after all that is done. The last is geofencing. Geofencing of the tablets. Geofencing means the tablet is marked to only operate from a certain point using satellite technology to mark where it is at any single point. There's a debate on what to do. Do you geofence because it consumes a lot of power? Do you geofence and use so much power that you cannot, as a result, work with the kit the entire day, transmit result, transmit logs? Most of these kits, we expect them to work for at least, I think, 12 hours. So we decided to select that instead of geofencing, we keep entire serial numbers of all the kits, and we assign each kit to a specific polling station. This data will be shared with all the political parties before the elections, so that you are able to verify post-election or during the polling that the same kit that was used, the same kit that we shared is in a specific polling station is where it's supposed to be. I realize your concern here was that you are saying 4,000 kits have been lost and can be used to transmit spurious results. This cannot happen. In the security we have deployed, in the new system, and indeed even in 2017. Before, in the production facility that you are going to visit, you are going to see that the servers that will receive results will be pre-configured to know which kits can transmit result, and only those kits which it knows can transmit. Nobody else can install that software because they do not have access to that software, and that software is the only software that can transmit results. That will address your concern that there are 4,000 kits that are somewhere which can transmit results. Secondly, I wish also to clarify that we've not lost 4,000 kits. We bought 45,000 kits in 2017. We have tested all of them. About 41,000 of them are working. 3,000 are not working, and they are available for you to see. They are not lost.
Since 1897. It is listed in Athens Stock Exchange since 1994. It has a strong European business footprint. It does print works for a number of countries in Europe, security printing. They are involved in services. The company is ISO 14298 certified. It is ISO 9001 certified. It is ISO 14001 certified. It is ISO 2701 certified. It is ISO 4501 certified. And it is ISO 30301 certified. It has various certifications for various activities, including security printing certifications. As a commission, we were interested in their preparation. As of the time we visited, which is I think slightly or less than a month ago, it had procured over 31 tons of UV dull security paper with custom-made watermark as per IEBC requirements. And what they procured is almost 75% of the requirements for the entire printing of the poll materials that we require for the election. The remaining 25% was the city which they get their raw materials from in Italy, and it was ready for shipment as and when they are asked to bring over. They had procured 100% of customization inks required, which were majorly 3 different types of inks, and they had required 100% of what was required for the entire print works. So in terms of capacity, we are very confident that they have the capacity to deliver. I was in the committee that was overseeing print works in 2017 for the ballot papers. I visited Algurai severally then, and having had the opportunity to visit this time, this particular farm, I can confidently say they have twice the capacity of Algurai. In fact, more than twice the capacity. The main production facility will be in Athens, but they have a redundancy parallel site in Romania which has identical equipments. The same equipments in Athens are the same equipments in Romania. And that can be used as a backup site in the event of any disaster happening in Athens. So as a commission, we are completely satisfied with their choice. They have the capacity. They are involved in businesses far more than the little contract we have given them. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are listed in the Athens Stock Exchange, and I don't think they will be doing any monkey business to jeopardize their vast business interests they have in several continents. And so that's the assurance we can give, Professor Makao Mutua. If there is anything else you want, we can ask you to go and see for yourself if you can pay your ticket. We were not even allowed to carry our let alone cameras, even our phones into the production facility. Whereas in Algurai, we used to roam with our phones. So they are far more serious, and we believe we have made the right choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. I want to give way forward to this meeting. I recognize the presence of the UDA presidential candidate and the chief agent. You are ably represented by your team. Is it a question on ballot paper? Prof, so you don't move, stay there. I just want to say that the technical team will actually be arranging a meeting with the technical teams from the 4 presidential candidates on the issues of technology and visitation of our factory. So that is being done, and also other issues which we may not exhaust here today, then can be discussed in our follow-up meeting next week. We may not be able to exhaust everything, and because we also understand the other schedules. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a follow-up to what Professor has said, that the team that the team that did visit Greece and Romania to check all these preparations, what you say gives us really a lot of confidence. However, we cannot ignore history. This is the farm that in 2019 was linked to the postponement of elections in Nigeria because they were unable to deliver on time. So they might have all those security features. What guaranteed patience we normally have when the station is not open for 2 hours? So if we have to postpone this election even by a day, imagine the kind of crisis we'll be dealing with in this country. Did you ask them about that particular occurrence, and what guarantee did they give you that we'll have this delivered in time?
Thank you. First of all, we asked the same question. You botched Nigeria elections. Why should we trust you? The first thing they told us was they were never contracted to do the Nigeria election. The truth of the matter was the Nigerian Electoral Commission convenes in the African continent that our ballot paper, the Kenyan of some African countries, we have 8 security features on our ballot paper. If you want the details, some are visible by the eye, others are invisible, some you need an extra magnifying lens to see, some you need, the UV lights.
I'm aware there are many issues, but we can't exhaust them today. My proposal is that each of the candidates, presidential candidates, should have a technical staff of 2 to meet with our technical staff and deal with the issues that we have not covered here. Number 2, we received a letter from Smeo yesterday. We are going to respond to each and every issue you have raised. And also, because there are matters of public concern, we shall share that with the rest of the candidates and the Kenyans at large. And so, we cannot exhaust this meeting issues today.
Yeah,
yes. Yes.
I just want to.
I'll give each team a chance to say something, but go ahead.
You had given us an assurance, Chair, that you'll give us an opportunity to raise the issue of the personnel of the Commission.
So if Chair, you could allow me, all these things we are talking about, this exercise will have a human element. The Commission has already recruited returning officers both for the county and for the constituencies. It has also deputy returning officers for the constituencies. Chair, we have noted with concern that there is a great tribal imbalance, ethnic imbalance in the composition of those returning officers. If you want the details, Chair, Kenya is a country that is made up of at least 50 communities, diverse communities. But when it comes to the returning officers at the county level, 10, nearly 10, because there are 8 from one community. And that community has a presidential candidate in this election. By comparison, the next community that has a candidate in this election at the top level only has 4 returning officers at the county level. Chair, we have also noted that at the constituency level, when it comes to returning officers and deputy returning officers, we're talking about 290 plus 290, 580. Out of 580 key personnel at the constituency level, we have nearly 100 from one community. I have the figures.
Can we answer?
Yes, I have the figures. I have the data. I have compared, even with the strength of these communities when it comes to the population of the country. The community that I'm talking about that is leading is not the community that is leading in terms of the general population, but yet in every aspect, they have at least double the number of personnel. Chair, you will note that these returning officers are the ones who are recruiting the actual personnel that will conduct this election at the polling station level. That is the real theater of operations for this election. And therefore, if we have...
we have understood you.
Yes, yes. And lastly, on the same issue, we are already receiving complaints. We are already receiving complaints from some of these places where these officers are deployed. We are talking about Kisii, we are talking about Busia, we are talking about Bungoma. We are receiving complaints from the ground that the recruitment of presiding officers is not going, is going in a very skewed way. And therefore, kindly address that. These concerns will be followed by a written document. Thank you very much.
So, do you wait for the written or? No.
You can respond.
Yeah.
We will still follow it because I've not expressed everything that there is to express because of time.
Thank you. Prof, you want to say something? But as Professor speaks, I don't think there's any institution in this which has the face of Kenya as does have. But Prof, go on with it. And right now we have officers in Bomas. The face of Kenya is in Bomas. But Professor...
Thank you, Chair. The reason why we said we wanted to meet in camera is because some people get excited with camera. This is to politicize this
Unless
function.
you want to give me a right to respond.
Excuse me, you have asked a question, I will have a right to respond.
Do not attack my character. I'm here, I can defend myself.
I want to respond to the
defend
question
myself.
in
Do not
my
attack
own
my
manner.
character.
Okay?
Have some order, please.
IEBC recruits personnel in this manner. When there is a constituency position, the recruitment is locked to the constituency. There are 290 constituencies in Kenya, which therefore means recruitment is based at the constituency level. The DRO, the Deputy Returning Officer, the returning officer are both recruited, and their ID must read they come from born and brought up in, or born in that constituency. This is to ensure we have the face of Kenya in the commission. When we have a county position, because we devolved our functions in 2017 when we came to office ourselves, we started the county manager position. The first criteria for employing somebody as a county manager or a county accountant or a county ICT or county supply chain is your ID must read that county. The commission has moved away from using temporary returning officers more than a decade ago. For anyone to insinuate we have just recruited ROs based on skewed tribal affiliation is misleading and wrong. We recruited our staff, some of them as far back as 2012. They are all permanent and pensionable staff of the commission. In 2017, when there were by-elections all over, the commission had a disciplinary process, having called all returning officers that had issues in their constituencies. We dealt with them. And the reason why we moved away from temporary ROs is because we want people who are on permanent and pensionable terms, who in the event something happens, they have a lot more to lose than just the 2-3 months they are hired. If you go to Bomas of Kenya today, there are 890 personnel of IEBC on full permanent and pensionable terms. They are the ones who are going to oversee the election. They oversaw the election in 2017 and in 2013. Let's not politicize the staff of IEBC. We are only recruiting temporary deputy constituency returning officer, one position. We have a permanent returning officer on permanent and pensionable terms, recruited in the manner I described earlier. And we have a permanent and pensionable deputy returning officer. So we are having an additional one that is temporary, so that we have in every constituency one returning officer and 2 deputy returning officers, one of them being temporary. And the temporary returning officer deals mostly with only logistical arrangements and not results. At the county level, we have a full-time permanent and pensionable county returning officer. What we have only done is to give him one temporary assistant to help him in the process. But at his disposal is a county ICT, a county accountant, and a county supply chain. So the issue of tribalizing IEBC or balkanizing into one of the 43 ethnic tribes does not arise. We are not a tribal institution. We are a national institution undertaking a national mandate. And our focus is purely on that. If you have a problem with any postings and you have an individual case, please come and see the chairman and say, I have an issue here. And we will deal with it. But criminalizing and giving an impression that the commission is only serving one ethnic group or ethnicity is wrong. We will not entertain that kind of, judgments by anyone. Our staff, we will defend them as much as it has to be, because we want them to be nationalists and to serve this country regardless of where they are posted and whom they will be serving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Prof. All the tribes of Kenya work for IEBC, including the smallest tribe. So, if you have any data to the contrary, share with me. There was a hand here. Your issue been addressed? Yes, Professor.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Kithure Kindiki. On behalf of the UDA and the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, Mr. Chairman, we want to state that we have full confidence in the Commission and the returning officer of the presidential election. Mr. Chairman, thank you for giving us this opportunity. We have been represented here since 8 o'clock, and we've been updated that our team has raised most of the issues that we wanted to raise. I only require, now that the presidential candidate is here in person on his behalf, you allow us 3 minutes, which I will share 2, and one member will share 1, and we'll finalize our submission. The Chairman, we will be writing to you formally later today. I hear our counterparts, our competitors had also written to you, the Azimio group. We'll also be writing to you later today on the number of technical issues and operational issues which we think need to be addressed urgently. The one thing that we'll request in that letter is an urgent response, because we only have 4 or 5 weeks left and we need to be ready. Among the issues, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of the KPMG audit of the register. The gaps that were identified, we want to know them in the spirit of the transparency of the electoral process, both before, during, and after. We would like to know what those gaps were and whether they have been addressed satisfactorily, because that is very critical. Secondly, if we could even have a copy of that report, because I think they're auditing a public process. It should not be a secret. It should be available even to the media, so that we know what gaps exist, when they will be addressed, and so forth and so on. Number 2, Mr. Chairman, with regard to the loading of the data into the KIEMS, I don't know at what point the agents of the various parties will be allowed to, at least, I know it's a huge process, transferring the manual register into the KIEMS and loading the KIEMS is a very huge and burdensome process. But the agents of the candidates can be allowed to at least sample or have access to that process, again, just for assurances that everything is okay, so that we are sure whatever is loaded electronically is consistent with what would be available manually. Thirdly, the visit to the printer, I think also should be, of course it's our business to organize, but we need facilitation from your side in terms of timelines, so that we also arrange for visas and tickets for our team who wants to go and see and visit the plant, and maybe synchronize with our competitors so that we again don't put on the commission with separate visits. Thirdly, we are a bit dissatisfied with the response the commission has given on the issue of geofencing of the KIEMS kits. Extremely dissatisfied. We raised it in our letter, we'll say why. Because the fact that you have said this KIEMS kit, serial number this, is assigned to a polling center this, is not enough. Because the transmission of results can take place in a nearby forest and still within the same location. So there is need for the place where that transmission will take place to be controlled to the best possible location in terms of georeferences. Finally, we have a general issue on compliance by the players in the presidential campaign with the Electoral Code of Conduct, which every candidate signed. We've seen incidents of inter-party violence and intra-party violence. We have had an incident in Jakarta where our rally was disrupted violently. We have also seen our competitors had issues in Marsabit among themselves, in Marsabit, in Garissa, in Mandera. It's worrying. Our view is that although the Commission does not have prosecution powers, because we saw your statement, but I'm sure there is something you can do, including warnings or whatever other method you can use to enforce that code of conduct so that the election is peaceful. I'll donate 1 minute to Moses Kuria, a member of the team. And half a minute for you, and you won't have a minute. And we were also, that our friends spoke a lot. So there's need for balance of airtime. 1 minute for Moses Kuria, 1 minute for Veronica Maina.
I just do the minute, please. We need to move on to the next issue.
Thank you. I am concerned about the issue of agents because Professor Guri has said that their primary concern is to protect the commission staff, which is rightly so. But our primary commitment is to protect our agents. Elections are not stolen. Elections are lost by agents. So therefore, my concern is from previous experiences of the last elections. The issue of turning away agents on polling day. So the agents turn up, or you don't have original.
We already discussed that issue. It was raised in the morning. I think your team were here.
Around security intelligence. Please, at the risk of annoyance. So this agent stands up at the polling center. They are told you don't have original oath of secrecy. You don't have original agent accreditation form. You don't have the badge. My question is it possible that you can have a pre-verification on a day before, maybe for the oath of secrecy and the agent form, so that the only thing that's retained by the commission, by the returning officer, is a badge? In 2017, in Kitui County, the Jubilee Party had most of the agents stand away up to 2 o'clock. I'm not saying Professor Makamoto had anything to do with it, but up to 2 o'clock, Jubilee agents could not access, and have been involved in a number of by-elections after that. And this is a very, very, very serious problem. Secondly, and related to that, Professor Kuri has said that we want to minimize the issue of photo taking in the polling center, and rightly so. But what happens is that returning officers and presiding officers curtail excessively communication, so that even if there is a problem, we don't get to know about it. And I'll give an example of the Msabweni by-election, where we had serious problems communicating with the agents on the ground, because the returning officer becomes a power by themselves. You cannot make the phone call. You cannot do this. Why are they agents? How will we know when something goes wrong if presiding officers develop their own rules on the ground? Finally, on the issue of mass transfers, we are dissatisfied with the vague answer that was given about the 3 officers and the action being taken. The reason being that one of the cabinet secretaries had said publicly to one of the presidential candidates that they know their work and they are doing their work. Could this cabinet secretary be one of the 3 people at an investigation? Thank you.
I think for my 1 minute, yes. Chairman, I think we have spoken a lot and we have given our views as the UDA and Kenya Kwanza coalition. But there is one question that we need clarity from your end as the presidential returning officer. Which form exactly are you going to be using for tallying the presidential result? We have the form 34A and we have the form 34B. And supposing the Form 34B has an error and is not indicative of what happened at the polling center, the Form 34A, which forms are you going to tally the presidential vote tallying center, at the polling center? Will the parties have an opportunity, now that we would have taken photographic image of the Form 34A, will we have an opportunity to relay information to you so that if during the transmission there is a problem with what...
Say a few things. And I'm happy you say you put some of these things in writing, so we shall adequately respond. You wanted to make closing remarks? I heard you several times. Yeah, please make it brief.
Yes. My running mate will give our closing remarks, please, because we work as a team. And we'd like to do them from in front there. The camera isn't getting the right shot.
Please keep to the
Yes, we will keep the 2 minutes. We'll give from here. We don't know. We don't know why we had to be pushed to that corner, but it doesn't matter.
Keep to the agenda of the meeting. Yes. Keep to the agenda of today's meeting. Yes. The politics will be... I wrote to you for this meeting. I itemized the issues. Please. Yes. Please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, the commissioners, our competitors, and everyone else. Ours is a closing remark that is brief. The IBC, we thank the IBC for inviting us. Allow me to read. The IBC, we thank you for inviting us for this meeting. It has been very useful. I reiterate our earlier position that the support for electronic voter registration, we are for that as option A and option B. In our manifesto to be launched in the next few days, we support, and we still insist we are supporting, the ICT technology. I am in it, and I know it is possible to have credible elections dependent on ICT. IBC, Mr. Chair, you have done a good job, and anything that borders intimidation, don't allow it. The ground has changed. Kenyans are depending on you. Do what is right. We know that your job is not easy. During the nomination, we learned that some of your staff did not sleep for 3 days. Going to the 9th, 2022, you might even go for a week or so without sleep. You have our prayers, and because we shall be praying for you, you shall overcome. For Kenyans, please, keep peace and more peace. Elections come and go. Don't fight. Our request is to vote and change leaders. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what in that is outside your agenda? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can add you another minute. Okay.
I have been vaccinated.
I believe those are closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize for coming late. It was not intentional. You're aware, we had written an earlier communication that this meeting would start at 11. And unfortunately, our Secretary General called us last night that there was a change of time meeting, so I apologize for that. But having said that, I would request that we should at least give us maybe 3-4 days notice of the actual timings, because you understand, I think, was once told by Muite that when you support a government, you criticize it when it goes wrong. So sometimes when you see criticism, I think in that spirit. Two final things. Thank you very much. Two final things. We all agree that we are, the digital highway is the place we are going. We support your commitment to the electronic register. We are trying to move our parties to also have nominations like our competitors using an electronic register. So I think that's the direction we want to go. There has been notions that are not correct, that Kenya Kwanza wants a manual register. We do not want a manual register. If you give us sufficient safeguards that an electronic register will function without any chance of failure, then we are good. And finally, I was amazed at the number of staff, permanent staff, IEBC have. 800, in the region of 800 plus. Mr. Chairman, that's a very huge resource which Kenyans pay for. You should consider in future deploying that resource to help us with nominations in parties. I think really there should be a consideration because it's a national resource and they shouldn't be waiting to just run the elections. They can also help us run nominations in our parties with the expertise they have. In any case, Mr. Chairman, a democratic election will be heavily informed by the kind of nominations we do. If the nominations are not democratic, you end up with elections that are not democratic. So I think going forward, you should consider as IEBC working with political parties so that we can leverage more on the resource you have, which is a public resource, to assist grow political parties as institutions of governance. That because I believe that the strength of a democracy is dependent on the strength of the democratic institutions, including political parties that exist. Finally, we have no problem with any Kenyan serving in any capacity, so long as they have been recruited competitively and they have the requisite skills and competences. We have absolutely no preference for any Kenyan from any community. And if our competitors have a problem with certain Kenyans who come from certain communities, you can work out with them. We have no problem if they are replaced. But we want every Kenyan to be given a chance, and the measure should not be ethnicity, the measure should be competence, whether they are competent to do whatever it is that they are doing. I am on record, Mr. Chairman, saying that even if my competitor's brother was the chairman of IEBC, I would have no problem, so long as he is competitively recruited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, can you hear me? I'm sure that the president has been vaccinated, so there's no risk. Let me say, Mr. Chairman, that we, as I said earlier, we appreciate very much you and the Commission and your staff for making yourself available to us, to our competitors, to have this dialogue. I think of the political parties represented here, I can say that we in Azimio are the ones who have had historical grudges with the electoral body. Previous to yourselves, there was the ECK. We had issues with them. I know that it's no secret. You know we've had issues with this commission before. The courts have adjudicated that matter. But I want to say that we hope and trust that this time around that things will be different. And that's why we are here, to communicate with you, to dialogue with you, to fellowship together so that we can have this election be a credible election that Kenyans can accept and the world can celebrate. We have raised many issues, Mr. Chairman, and I think we've been in constant dialogue with each other over the past few months. We've written letters to you. We just want to make one entreaty to you and the Commission that when we write letters, would you please respond to us as quickly as possible, or at least communicate with us so that we can know when to expect a response. I just want to say that the issues that have been raised by my colleague here, Mr. Saitabao, about the ethnic imbalance in the Commission, these are not, light issues that should be taken lightly. I think you'll be providing, evidence of the questions he's raising. I hear what the Deputy President is saying, that he has no issue with Kenyans. And of course, we do not have issues with Kenyans. But I think that the principle of inclusivity requires, as our Constitution dictates, that public bodies be representative, that they represent the people of Kenya and represent the face of Kenya. I think we've seen some discrepancies. I agree again with the Deputy President that merit is important, but our Constitution also dictates that we look at other vectors of identity, such as region, such as gender, such as disability. All these factors are important when we are constituting a public body like this one. So I think we shall be giving you the information that we have, and we hope to dialogue with you. We do not want to assume bad faith until we get your answers. The Russians say trust but verify. So we are trusting first, but then we'll verify after we get your responses. So, Mr. Chairman, we are grateful to you and the Commission, and we look forward to a free and fair election. Thank you so much.
Roots Party, you have... Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Brano Cage. I'm the head of campaign secretariat for Roots Party, headed by Professor George Luchiri Wajackoyah. Chairman, you may have noticed that we have donated a lot of our time to Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. It's because we really appreciate and understand the sensitivity and the magnitude of the work that you do. And most of the time, as politicians, as political parties, we do not really take time to appreciate the kind of work that you're doing. So we continue to express our confidence in the work that you're doing. We'll continue to support the commission where we are needed. And we are appreciating so much that you continue to engage us. And we hope that this will continue all the way to the general elections. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me stand. I've been sitting for too long. You have asked a lot of questions. The media. Now, let me deal with the questions, then I'll sit, I'll allow the media before I finalize. Oh, you want? I thought you wanted to ask questions. Thank you. closing, I'll start off by saying that a number of issues which have been asked by our stakeholders. It's not audible. Are we okay now? No? Can I have another mic? Are we okay? Yeah, thank you. A number of the questions will be answered by the technical team. Next week, Marijan convened that meeting. We invite two from each of the presidential candidates to deal with the technical issues. One of them being visitation to our factory, where we are preparing the KIMS kits. And a lot of questions then will be answered when you do the visitation, how the process is ongoing, how the SD cards will be loaded. There's a whole team working on that. The issue of the register will be, of course, addressed. The register will be shared with the stakeholders and broken down up to the belief polling station. You'll have that information so that you can also prepare for the big day. Visitation to the ballot paper factory, I think dates will be given when the team is going. Fortunately, IEBC does not have a budget to finance the stakeholders, so we shall ask you to look into your kitty. But the dates and arrangements will be made for purpose of visa arrangements and travels, and of course, being welcome to the other side. So issues around geofencing, the technical team will give you more information, anything to do with the KIMS kits, and other questions that you are burning to be informed. I only want to comment on two issues. Of course, our presiding officers work under regulations, and the entire IEBC team works under the election regulations. So they don't make laws on the ground as they stand. We work under a legal framework. I just want to comment on two issues. One, the result is from that 4A. That's the result we are going to use. That's the result the National Returning Officer will be tabulating to ensure that whatever is in that 4B corresponds with that 4A. The result at the polling station is final and cannot be changed. If there are errors, we shall note the errors. We have created an error form, and that form then will be shared with the court. If there's any petition in the Supreme Court, the results will be submitted together with the error forms. What we are saying this time round is, candidates, please have your agents at polling stations. Agents get copies of the results, and you can then share with whoever is managing the candidates. And when we meet at Bomas or at the National Tallying Center, let us then compare notes. The commission will have the results. If you have any issue with the end of the results, point it out. The agents will have, the commission will have, the media will be having those results, so that we move this process smoothly. And the commission has result forms, will be printed. Our result forms also have security features. So don't bring us any form. It's a serialized, it's printed. We shall only look at the forms which we know are genuine forms. So don't bring us a form which doesn't belong to the commission. So together, if we work together, I think we shall then deliver a believable, as Professor Macau says, you say trust. I think we shall have reached that level. Beyond that aspect of any doubt. Code of conduct. Candidates, political parties, you signed the code of conduct. In 2017, the commission enforced the code of conduct to the fullest. We had 71 cases. We heavily fined individuals who breached the code of conduct. We disqualified 2 of them from participating in elections when they failed to pay the fines. This time round, we gazetted the election date on 20th January and commenced then the code of conduct. But one of the individuals went to court, and the court made a judgment that the Commission's Code of Conduct Enforcement Committee is unconstitutional. Now, that then took away all the teeth the Commission has to bite on any misbehavior as a result of the Code of Conduct. The Commission's Code of Conduct Committee arises from the Constitution. Article 884 provides that the Commission shall come up with a Code of Conduct. So here we were being told that it's unconstitutional, yet it's a creature of the Constitution. So we filed an appeal in the Court of Appeal, which came up for hearing yesterday, and the Court of Appeal has set a judgment for the 4th of November. We all know 4th of November we shall be done with the elections. Now, what are we left with? We are told we cannot summon those candidates who are breaching the code of conduct, or political parties, or all the people bound by the code. We don't have, then the court has taken away from us the powers to issue summons. And so what we are left with is, if you write to us, you have issues about the campaigns out there, all we do is forward your details, our complaint to the DPP. That's what we are left with. And we're also left with preaching peace and telling you candidates, please campaign peacefully out there because this is our country. Don't be violent because we all care about this nation. So that is where we are as far as the code of conduct is concerned. But we shall continue engaging. We shall impress upon the DPP to prosecute. We shall issue press statements as and when events unfold, and call upon you to campaign peacefully. But we don't have the powers to summon you because they have been taken away from us by the court. You are in competition. You are not enemies. And so far, as I said, I'm happy that